questions.
Me too.
Just not long.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah. We should structure
Yeah,
maybe
we'll
some
get
kind
our,
of like a
maybe, yeah,
time
get our
frame. Like
things together. 'Cause
each person gets like three, like he gets, like the presenter gets
Okay,
like
you're
5.
live on Facebook.
Oh, okay. Very good. It is now 6:04. I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. And I'll do attendance. Sonia Holcroft,
Here.
Loretta Phillips,
Here.
Kane Phelps,
Here.
Marvin,
Here.
Todd Hebert,
He's here.
who's here?
Yes,
Oh, he's out.
he's outside.
And then Kenny Blau,
He's not here.
David Fong. Have you asked those questions?
Not.
I do not believe he's joining us today.
That's good?
He's not joining us today. He's not able to come.
Okay. All right, that's the end of attendance roll call. And I'm Sheree Brown, I am president. So on the agenda today, we're going to be talking about combining initiatives for the Education and Outreach Committee and the Employment Talent Committee. So, can we start with the Education and Outreach Committee, because being that I'm kind of new to that portion of it, I don't know what initiatives that we had outlined for that committee. And we could probably go to the minutes from those last meetings.
For education.
Yes.
Are they included in these minutes?
Yes.
Go to probably page 2.
Okay. Sonia, did you want to go through the education portion of our initiatives? Since I wasn't here at the last meeting, could be able to give a
Yeah.
thorough.
Yeah, 1 second. So the first initiative was social service structures, programming, and outreach. I just updated basically that Troy has hired a social emotional teacher named Megan Campbell for the district. Also, the multicultural high school group was one of the highest groups that Troy has ever had, to the point where they had to hire a full-time staff. That was a result of this George Floyd incident. Haywood also had some programs that they were working on. There was a mentorship program to advocate for college kids, like finding grants and things that the Sadlers were doing. Haywood specifically is doing a Monday I'm sorry, what does it say? Yikes. I think it's called My Culture Monday. And what's going to happen is kids are invited to bring family and friends in and talk about their culture. Basically, just kind of getting everybody up to speed of what the school was doing. What we really wanted to do, the biggest thing in regards to that was the survey that we were talking about, was creating a survey, and would we create it in conjunction, or if the school would be willing to partner. I think we decided that we were just going to go ahead and create our own survey. Marvin can speak to that.
Yeah, I think the way you left it, we were, sorry, I cannot speak with this thing on. We were trying to come up with our own schedule.
You can move the microphone closer to you.
There's that one over there on your right.
Is that better?
This way. That way you can take it off.
Okay, so we were going to come up with our own survey. So we wanted to go through and create a list of questions. And so what we wanted to discuss in this meeting was the expected outcome, so that we could come up with the questions. So those are still outstanding. So my suggestion is that instead of spending today doing that, we can send out a survey to everybody with that is here that would like to come up with questions, and then we can bring all those questions back and then collate, then get a survey that we can actually put in front of people.
So the target audience for the survey are the students?
Well, it's the citizens of Troy. So we wanted to have a target set, one for students and then one for adults. It's how we left it.
Is that, because you know, in our employment challenge meeting, we talked about the feasibility study.
Yes.
Would it be in the same vein as the feasibility study?
Kind of.
Maybe a
But
community assessment.
it's different. A feasibility study comes after the survey's been done, because then you know what you want to spend the dollars on.
Right, okay, so it would be, what about the needs, like Sonia said, the assessment, the needs assessment that the Troy Foundation is currently doing? Is that in addition to that needs assessment?
That's in addition, like it's different, yes.
Okay.
Because we had talked about the Troy Foundation assessment. We've also talked about the survey that's being done by Troy City Schools. And it was brought to our attention that the school probably would not share that information with us. So we would need to come up with our own survey.
Yeah, Mr. Fong said that he would try to reach out and, see what the possibilities were, but he was just honest with, his thoughts of where we were in regards to that. So that was the biggest education. It was more of updates, kind of where we were. And then we talked about diversity training for staff and students.
When do we want to have this survey submitted out? When do we want to have it, like, actually send it out to the community? When do we want to do this?
I think that survey may be ready in maybe the month of December. I don't think it will be any sooner than that, because we would need time to create the survey, then also make sure that it gives us the expected outcome that we want. And I think those points are points that we still need to discuss, right? The other thing that we have discussed is I guess, essentially looking at a company that could help us create the survey, because there's certain sciences that they use to create a survey to get the outcome that you want. Since I myself, I'm not skilled at creating a survey, so we should probably look at a company to do it for us. So 2 big things that we need to get done in the next month is, one, to find a company to help us co-author a survey, and then prior to even going to them, we need to put the survey together, at least what our desired outcomes are.
So what would so is it one community survey based on the education system in Troy?
Yeah, so we had actually looked at 2 surveys. I don't know how practical that is. One for school age kids, and then one for parents. So it might be better if we just did one survey, but I don't know how to structure a survey when you're going after 2 segments.
Well, I think you could possibly just differentiate it with just the question of age, like,
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Or how you do it, like
Yeah.
the smaller ones, up until probably 3rd grade, I would say, I have dolls, different colored dolls.
okay,
And I use those
okay.
with my preschool class to
Gotcha.
teach them about different cultures, different colors, and all that stuff. And they react you would be surprised at some of the
Sure.
things they say
Yeah.
with the particular doll.
Right.
Already. So with the younger ones, it would be different.
And just to throw in the pot, I think that when we're filling out this survey, I think we also need to keep in mind that that sometimes our jails and our prison systems and our schools, a lot of the literature that is accessible to the students is very conservative
Okay.
in its values. And so I think we should also maybe see if we can get a list of what is out there for the students to be accessible to. We visited the jail, an organization I'm in, a nonprofit, and we saw that a lot of the books that were accessible for them to read were very, very conservative, and there wasn't very many options for people to expand their views and learn different things.
We also mentioned having Megan or inviting Megan Campbell to come. She is in charge of the school survey that's working with a third party as well. I think David was supposed to report back to us on if that was going to happen or not, or maybe Salome, if you're able to see if it's a possibility of her coming.
I can ask Mr. Fong if he reached out to Megan and asked.
Okay.
What's Megan's last name?
Campbell.
Okay, so that is one initiative from the education committee or education committee that we wanted to combine. It sounds
Yeah.
like something we want to combine.
Mhm.
So two
Then
surveys.
under our diversity training initiative, I just gave an update. We're actually in the training day 1. We'll start day 2 tomorrow of the tactical training. 1 Troy police officer and 1 sheriff's department officer is being trained so we can train all the police in that. And that looks at the differences of socioeconomic class, per language, driving forces, hidden rules, motivators, so on, etc. And then we tabled because Kane wasn't there to report on Lancaster.
I'm sorry, Sonia, can you go back? You were saying that there's a police officer and a sheriff that's been trained on what exactly, please?
Yeah, they're being trained on the tactical communication training that came a few months ago.
Yep.
And so we're going to co-train in regards to, it's Bridges Out of Poverty based, but it looks at the different socioeconomic classes in regards to de-escalation techniques as well, hidden rules, language, kind of that whole spectrum. So we'll start day 2 tomorrow.
What would be the incentive behind it? Are they receiving something at the end, like some kind of certificate that says I got this kind of training?
So they're trained as facilitators. So they will facilitate the whole police force and all the first responders as the hope. So going out of the gamut, fire department, maybe social services. So that's the goal. But the first goal is in service for next year, 2021. So they will train their fellow officers.
Gotcha. So it's actually a trainer type stuff.
Yeah, they hold a 2-year certification upon completion of training, which will be next week, I believe. I don't have the schedule in front of me. And so we'll start working on that, facilitating that training. And mind you, Sergeant Slusher from the Sheriff's Department is an amazing trainer. He does the police force for civilians training. He does the CIT training. He does mental health for first responders training. And Zach Bedelin, he's going to be amazing as well. He's a very relational in his style of policing, so it fits kind of hand in gloves with the philosophy of Bridges.
Can I ask you for those names one more time, please?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I'm on my phone tonight. I apologize.
So would you mind giving me those 2 names again, please?
Yeah, it's Zach Bedelin for Troy PD and Sergeant Randy Slusher for the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you.
We're also working just as a side note, for Partners in Hope in getting a education class for the inmates. Right now I'm training females to go into the female side of the jail to work on a program that it's under Bridges Out of Poverty. It's called Getting Ahead While Getting Out. So it talks about getting prepared for a future view, for a different choice or resources upon release. So we're working on that as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, let's see, looking at, back to the committee minutes from last time. Number 3, it says interviews with students regarding their prospective views, goals, and ideas. That actually can be combined with the survey. Unless,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Number 4 says educational pathways, stadium program. What can you tell me about that?
We were trying to find out more information about why they're in the locker room and how we can make sure that they're more inclusive to the rest of the population and the school system. We had a meeting where Sonya's daughter came and we got to speak with her about it. It was a very, very difficult time with her as she went through her thought process on how it made her feel, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think the thought process is to speak with Troy City Schools to see if we could make sure that that's eliminated or at least changed. And so that discussion will be started from Mrs. Holy Cross, and hopefully we have some resolution on that this year. So, Sonia, would you like to update us on that?
Yeah, so that was a part of the conversation in regards to the updates of what Troy City Schools was doing. I shared some of those frustrations with our superintendent, who sent Megan Campbell over to kind of assess what's really going on, so to speak, at the field house. So that was another reason why we wanted to have Megan come, so she could kind of walk us through maybe what she's done, observed, saw, what her mission vision was within the schools. So that kind of all wrapped up into the same summary. So I think, in truth, I think that is the foundational point. If that's the point person who's charged to deal with those things, to invite her in, send some questions ahead so she's prepared, and kind of see where they're at, so we would even know, what to
I'm
do.
not trying to rain on everybody's parade, but we really don't have much control over the school. And I guess my question is then, how would you want, because I did announce at council, but by the end of this year, we're going to have a list of initiatives to give to them. So is your
At the
approach?
last meeting, that's what David just was honest about. And so that's where the meeting kind of concluded, to the best way to reach out was through David, in hopes of inviting Megan in to kind of educate us as to what the school was doing. So that conversation was had at the last meeting. And so again, the real initiative out of that at this point is to see if we could get Megan to come in. And then also we talked about just kind of our behavior in regards to speakers and making sure they were comfortable or whatnot. And so that's kind of why we need David to go back to his colleagues to invite. That's really kind of where we were already. So I wouldn't want, to waste time on what we've reiterated already. So I think at this point, we just need to see if we can get Megan in.
Okay, I guess, so what do you, because I'm new on this committee, so this is my first time seeing any of this, but so what then are we as this committee, if we wanted to succinctly put into writing a recommendation or a request to the mayor, is the request that we ask the schools to look at, is that a disciplinary issue? I don't even know what the stadium issue is.
I don't think they do either.
Okay,
because they say first it's the kids that are having problems being in the school. Then they say it's their grades.
so do we want to do something generic and just sort of say, it would be our hopes that we convey to the school that all students are treated fairly, equally, irrespective of race? Because I don't know, I mean, and we would
Partly, I think
that,
partly it's needed
that
to
later on, I mean, that part of what we'd be looking at next year would be succinct, perhaps recommendations, and maybe we could get the school to buy in to hear from us as a group, because I would think that they would want to hear from us. My only concern is we're almost to November, and I know people think, oh my gosh, that's a long time, but
Mm-mm.
we really don't have a lot of time, and I think we need to work it. I want to get a cohesive document to council, and I think our meeting is like December 13th, give or take. So is that when it is? You remember? When's our last meeting before the end of the year?
Council meeting?
Like December 13th?
Well, why are you targeting that? To have a report?
Because I want to have a report. We said we would have a report to council so that council then can look at all this starting next year. So we wanted to have a report to council by the end, a report to Robin by the end of this year.
That's a lofty goal, but.
We can get it. We
I'm
got
sure you can. It's not required under the ordinance. The ordinance is just an update at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, but then we'll end up, well, that's what I'm
13th
saying.
No, it wouldn't be the 13th because it's the first and third Monday of the month. And the 13th is never going to be a third Monday.
Here, hold on, I can tell you.
When is Christmas?
So my question is this, from, obviously you notice there's an
It's
issue
20 days
with
is the last
this
meeting.
educational pathway of the stadium program, right?
Mhm.
So as an HRC,
We're first
what
and
can
third
we derive from that
It's
that
gonna
can
be
make
the
it
fourth.
better to where
Every
students
fourth
won't
Monday.
feel like they're,
Those are
The 14th.
So the week
Go
before, the
ahead.
21st is.
Go ahead.
So I think we need to hear from Megan, or hear from somebody about what's going on to even make that decision, in all honesty.
say it again?
That we need to hear from the school to even know what's going on, what's there. I mean, of course, the surveys are more of a long-term goal, but at this point, all of us, in regards to the stadium program, I mean, don't we need to learn more before we even know what to recommend?
Well, we heard from your daughter, and I
I've
think
talked to
that was
several people.
very informative on how it makes people feel very distant and extremely disenfranchised from the school system, from the city. And so I think it is a issue that we need to try and tackle, hopefully find some common ground. I guess if we need to speak with someone about it, we can do that, but I think that we should make it an initiative to maybe speak with more people and hopefully eliminate a classroom from being in a locker room. I think
Okay,
that-
I mean, I can get around that.
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the idea of recommendations because, you know, once again, we don't have any power with the school system at all because it functions on its own through the Board of Education that functions through the State Board of Education. I would say, thinking of writing recommendations of what we'd like to see and specifically programs that maybe could replace it, that they would receive some kind of state funding or anything that would benefit them, that would make them want to make this change.
I think right now, I think if we could just get them moved into the school with the rest of the students, I think that's a very good step.
Yeah.
As you know, as I went through discovery and kind of understood the whole scenario, it was more of it makes me feel this way to be, excluded from the school system, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's extremely traumatic. And I think we have to fix that first, and then maybe we can go after some other things. I think that will be very low hanging fruit for us to fix.
And so that, I missed the 1s and 2, but that will be our recommendation coming out of 3, that that the school looks at the impact of this particular program from the societal aspect and contemplate changing or modifying
Yes.
it going forward.
Yes.
Did you get all that, Solomon?
I'm not the one who takes minutes.
Oh.
Yeah,
You're
it
the-
should be this one.
Okay.
Oh, she's going. She got it.
So-
She got
so I'm
it. She's
retired.
really good.
Okay. So to bring Todd up since he was late. bring him
We had
up. I
some
do
good,
that too. I do
we
that
had some good city business to do.
I'm sure. So the two initiatives from the education committee that we're going to be combined, that we talked about already, that we're going to combine or potentially combine with the employment challenge is the survey. The first one is the social survey that will be targeting school-age students and their parents. And then the second one we just talked about is relocating the stadium program back into the main school building, addressing some of the issues that the students are feeling disenfranchised.
Sorry, was there any discussion about sponsoring the Bridges Out of Poverty training for the teacher and service day? Because I thought that was a really good.
That's ongoing now. The Bridges Out of Poverty training is ongoing.
No,
Sonia
I
said-
need to reach out to. I will reach out tomorrow to Chris to see if that's a possibility. I just hadn't had a chance to do that yet.
And I think that may be something where we as a group could impact the city or could impact the schools where it's not, because we could sponsor that as the HRC. If there's a cost, I think you have to buy a book or whatever that is. So
Yeah.
maybe as the HRC, we could look at sponsoring that for the schools. And that would be a way that we could impact the schools without having any, I can't come up with this, without having any direct control, because we really probably couldn't control curriculum or things like that. But if we offered that as during a teacher and service day, I think when I saw that one, I thought that was a very good
Yeah.
idea for us as HRC.
Remind me what resources the HRC has that you're committing.
The one that you told us that you would be glad to sponsor anything
Because
the
it's
HRC
gonna
wanted
be really
to do.
low. It's gonna
Yeah,
be
I
really
don't,
low
I
dollars.
don't remember ever reading that from Salame's notes.
You know what? I seem to recall that too.
I
Yeah, we
recall
did
him
say
saying we
that.
have
I don't
minimal,
recall that.
Yeah.
since it's under a certain threshold.
I think we should vote on it.
With this guy, you just never know. He's got he likes to walk in with a blank checkbook. Gotta keep him
That's the only way to walk.
So staying with that, so Sonia, being that they're actually doing, let's go back to the Bridges Out of Poverty training, and what would the potential cost be if we were to recommend to sponsor for in-service on an annual basis at the school?
Ooh, I don't do the costs. That's my boss, but I'm sure that it wouldn't be too terrible. I'll have to get back with you on that.
Okay,
I don't have that. I know there's a huge difference between actually calling and getting somebody to fly in versus us sponsoring and doing the training ourselves. So I think I think in another meeting, didn't somebody mention we could possibly get a $10,000 budget?
Mhm.
Well, we would have enough money for sure.
she's valid to it,
Yeah,
but.
you're really breaking up there on Zoom.
Did you say $10?
No, it's not that expensive, but I will. I'm so sorry. This Zoom is driving me bananas. Say it again, Sheree.
Okay, so right now we're doing the trainer right now with Sergeant Randy Slusher and then Zach, whatever Zach's last name.
That one. Are you talking about Bedouin, Sonia?
Yes.
Okay, so he won't be available until January.
Oh, but he's training right now. He's via Zoom at home. He's watching.
Okay.
But we're not we're not going to train until 2021.
Got it.
Yeah. So that, Sheree, that the train the facilitator for that, they're doing that through AHA process, and that is a $800 class.
But once
As
they're
a consultant, I'm a consultant, but as for Partners in Hope, I'm allowed to train my community partners. So it would be a good reduction.
okay. And so I'm thinking is once we get those guys trained, it's a matter of paying salaries for them to train at the school if they're trainers.
Yeah. Now, if they're interested in having
It
training
depends
on
if
site,
if they're on regular time, not on regular time. But I mean, that part of it can be worked out.
Okay.
And the only other thing, again, with Santa Claus over there is, this is the schools, and they sometimes can tap into some other resources that even the cities can't. So there may be some grant funds there. It's
Okay.
really about leveraging whatever they can do.
yeah. So, like if they could actually have Dr. Ruby Kane come, that's a big deal, but that would have to be something the school would fund, because that would cost quite more than what we would be able. So yeah, what I'll do, I'll get you the quote on what that training will be, and I'll email it out.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was a good idea to do annually. And this one last thing on here, it says new student body employment. What is that? Anybody?
Can you say that one more time?
Number 5, it says new student body employment. I don't know what that is.
Oh, so that stems from the conversation when Mr. Barnhorst came in, and people asked him about HBU schools. So I think wanting to recommend that they possibly look at a more diverse pool or HBU schools to recruit teachers. I'm pretty sure that's why that's on there. I don't.
Yeah, colleges.
Everybody at once. Come on, Patrick.
We all
And
do.
then our minority goal, which I
The
put.
acronym. Santa Claus knew that one.
Yeah. Go Santa.
I don't know if that's an initiative that we can, personally speaking, I don't
Yeah.
know if that's an initiative that we could push forward, but
I don't know if we could push it forward, but I think we can tell them what we would like. I don't think that would be out of line to say that on behalf of the kids, all minority kids, we think it would be nice if they had somebody that looked like them. I don't think it has to be I would love for it to be, but
What a lot of teachers do when they're looking for funding for something or a curriculum change, they'll do a presentation, present it to the board. The band program does that for funding as well to make sure that they're still funded. Maybe this could be something that the HRC could present to them, some data and information that shows the benefits of minority kids being taught by minority teachers, and how that helps in their developmental stage of
Yes.
education.
Yeah.
I think that
we
would be
could do something
beneficial.
like, yeah.
Just even us going to them instead of them coming to us also shows that,
We're serious.
exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
I mean, I would hope that same HBCU initiative shows up on the city side, and where I can say we would want the HRC's help is not just to suggest that we do it, it's a good idea, but who do we contact? Which schools around here, which programs?
We can get you some
And then
lists.
we can do when we send the postings, we know where to send them. If we have job fairs, we want to invite them so they have a table or a virtual presence, depending on how we're doing it. So I mean, it's beyond just the teachers. That works much in a much broader sense.
I'd like to make a suggestion. Since we don't really have, since we don't really have a item that we like to target for this specifically, I could invite my cousin to a meeting. He's a dean at Cornell, and he's over human working capital. So he kind of understands how large companies look at the structure, the needs of employment of people, and especially from a minority standpoint. So I would love to invite him to come. I just don't know when we can get him to come, but he could probably present at one of our main meetings. I think that would be very good for the education piece if we could create some questions for him and then have him come and present for us. Is that something that you guys would be okay with?
Yeah.
I think so. Because maybe we can link that with like our fire hometown hero apprenticeship that we have with the fire department, and just again being that bridge of helping to have that access to the resources and to the colleges. I like that.
Jason Wingard, WINGARD.
And what's his role with you?
Dean at Cornell over,
Being a student?
I don't know exactly what he does.
Okay. I could probably go and find him on that university.
He's over the Human Working Capital Department. Human Working Capital Management, I believe is his title.
But that sounds like, based upon what Patrick said, that would be an initiative for the employment challenge portion of, because right now we're combining,
Right.
remember, we're combining the initiatives, so that could be a,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I think it would probably cover both.
yeah.
Yeah. I think we can get him to try and run defense per se on both of those. I think that would come if you know, if I can get him to come.
And you know, as you're thinking of initiatives, we're thinking, you know, you're still talking very broad.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as you get more in the details, which you're starting to do, you're going to want to pick off those low-hanging fruit wins. So, you know, even the links to the universal links or the broader links to HBCUs is an initiative, but you know, already you can kind of claim at least a work in progress with a link with Tiffin as a specific university. I know it's not, I don't believe it's classified as a historically black university. I don't know the school, but it is a link, and they've got a pretty strong criminal justice / law enforcement certification program where we're already reaching out to them. We're already talking about recruiting and internships along the same lines as a fire apprenticeship program. So, you know, that's a quicker win, and one that you can focus on short term. And then from there, from that success, then you just broaden it to, okay, well, we've got Tiffin here. Now, what other schools like Central State and Clark State and you know, in the region that we can start to target and pick off using these wins as
Wilberforce.
examples of how it
Wilberforce.
works and how they can steal and they can plagiarize from there, which we do all the time. You know, it's best practices.
So I want a question about that. So with regards to us recruiting out to those organizations, those colleges, are we gonna place in some of our requirements, if you will? Or requests to target, not target, that's a bad word, but to open it up to minorities, encourage more minority students, i.e. whether they're Hispanic, Asian, African American, to apply to these different positions?
That's the goal. I mean, the goal is to just add diversity to our recruitment list, so they sign up for the tests
Okay,
and they apply for the jobs. That's where we're having the frustration. We're not getting people applying for labor, police officer, firefighter, you know. And once they get on that list, then they have to follow the civil service rules, but those civil service rules give us some latitude when they're initial hires. They tighten up when they're promotions, but initial hires, you know, if you make the top 10 of the list, we can hire from anywhere in the top 10.
So my son attends Miami University. That's and he's in the engineering program, and one of the things that was great for him going to Miami University was because he's minority, right? And so they have certain programs that target, I'm gonna use the word target for now, minority students to say, you're an engineer, it's rare for an African American to be an engineer. So they were like, come in, we've got scholarship for you. And he's in different organizations within Miami University. And it's kind of like it's a really good group of students who are very smart. But because it's a very narrow curriculum, they make sure that they go out and say, hey, you're going to be an engineer. Yes, come to our school, and this is what we offer to you. I don't know about that school that you're talking about. Tiffin, where is that located anyway?
Between,
Yes,
yeah,
Heidelberg,
real
you know,
small.
near Heidelberg.
Sonia, what is that? Northeast?
Yeah, it's north. It's between Findlay and Heidelberg.
There you
Oh,
another small one.
go. Small school.
yeah.
Well, in that connection, most major universities have multicultural programs. And we could be that bridgeway of having that access, because they'll have access to programs like that in the university.
I think the other path too is there's a lot of minority churches, you know, in the city of Troy. So you have lots of different avenues for us to go out and contact and have these discussions with as well. And I think it's extremely important for us to bring them into the conversation. So I think as an initiative, maybe it would be worth trying to meet with all the spiritual leaders of these various organizations to try to let them know what we're doing, so that they feel more included. And I think that's a huge stride in the right direction, because we're going to feed into, you know, the right groups of people that we want to talk to.
So I like that you said that, because in our last employment challenge meeting, that was one of the things that Melissa, or I think it was Melissa, talked about trust
Yes.
and how to bridge that trust gap between the community and these other organizations, charitable organizations. Using pastors or spiritual leaders is a plus, and actually getting them to say that, hey, this is good. You can trust this organization. You can trust HRC, Troy Foundation, and all of it. I think it's a good idea to invite them in to have a quick. I don't even know if any local pastors are involved, or if they're even watching.
There's none.
So how do we get to them?
John has put together a list of all the churches here in Troy. So John has a list of everyone who is a pastor at these churches in Troy, so we could start there. And I think it would be maybe appropriate to have them in for a meeting, if we could get some budget money from Mr. Chickerington. And we could have a little meet and greet. So we could,
I think that does make sense because
Did
I
you see the
know
look?
working from the nonprofit that's funded by
Mhm.
20 churches in our county, I can say that one of the things that the churches do miss is their council of churches, is having that
Mhm.
collaboration, and they just haven't been able to make that work again. So I think the churches would definitely welcome this. And church, I can also say churches are heavily involved within our nonprofit communities. You'll be very surprised of how much work our churches are actually doing in Troy. It's phenomenal. I agree as well. I think that initiative, whether that initiative is to build trust within the community, and the first thing is to reach out to the pastors, or the initiative is to reach out to the pastors.
Okay, local spiritual leaders.
Yeah.
That's a low hanging fruit, by the way.
Yeah, so let's do it. So can we mark that down as one of our initiatives? Is that, I know Mr. Sever is gonna say,
I think that's good.
let's put one down, right? Okay.
Do I have to donate some money so we can have some cookies and beverages, or should they?
Could this be privately
Churches?
funded?
For the churches?
I'll make a
Marvin's
donation.
comment? No,
Well, it's COVID. They might not want it.
Todd will take
Oh,
care of
that's
that.
true.
I just said I'll
COVID.
match the donation.
Well, you'd have to do like
Oh,
individual
that's- that's
bagging,
cute.
but
Yeah.
the governor did open up for buffet style. He did.
I won't be going.
I don't do buffet and
Yeah, we,
non-COVID.
the governor's initiatives, I am told anyway, and I believe she's watching on FaceTime, or on Facebook. What I'm supposed to say is that the governor's edicts are encouragements and or recommendations as far as Troy is concerned. So, you know, we're cautious, but we're not gonna shut our economy down. So if we do a buffet style, we'll make it work. But cookies and
Cookies,
coffee
we don't
and
need,
stuff like
we don't
that
need food. You just
Yeah.
want to get people together and.
You
just
share.
have a
Maybe just have water.
I like that.
Just
I
have
think just
some,
a
yeah.
reception,
Healthy.
just to, I think just to,
Yeah, I think we can cover that
Okay,
easier
good.
than the
and then we
books
can
of
do
li-
that. I don't
library
know if
books
the
that
whole
he wants to-
Arena could be able to, because we're gonna need a bigger space.
We could,
There's probably some
We'll talk to
options,
somebody
maybe the
from
Bravo
Bravo.
room,
Okay.
depends on how many people show up.
So then like, try and set a tentative date. I guess we can have an update by the next meeting, and then we can set a tentative date after.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, trying to plan for something at the end of the year, we're running out of year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But,
we
you
are.
know, the report to council can include, we've got one plan for first quarter of
First
next
quarter
year.
of January, yeah.
yeah, I like that. When, are we still having the homework people come and talk? Is that still?
That's the
29 November.
idea is that would be two commission meetings from now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think that
Next
will
Thursday's
parlay into some more.
November 12th.
November the 12th.
Yes.
November 12th.
But I did hear back from Hobart Brothers, and Tracy will not be able to attend the meeting on 12th.
Okay.
And she,
Trey?
Tracy.
Is that what he goes by?
No, it's a
He
she.
or she? Oh,
She.
no,
Tracy
I'm
Moser.
thinking of Trey.
No.
Hmm.
Tracy responded. I mailed both, but she responded, and she said she won't be able to come on 12th, but she was asking if there is another date she could come. So
Because Trey is the guy that you want to hear from.
From Hobart.
Yeah. Young black guy, he is leading the initiative at Hobart. He's an engineer, sharp guy.
Oh, there you go.
He
Reach out
kind
to
of helped
I did include
Bring
him
it
in
all
an email
together,
too.
so,
So, but so far
yeah.
I heard from
he
Tracy.
and Tracy and then the plant manager.
But also it depends. I think it depends what you want to hear from them. I asked them, I told them that you want to hear about recruitment practices and hiring minorities and some things we discussed at the
It's one of
meetings.
As well as their initiative that they've got a name for it. Another
Heart.
acronym.
Heart.
I
Heart.
can't remember.
So if you would like, I don't know if you want to, because you're inviting Clope and Conagra and you want to have an employment type of meeting on employment issues. If that's the meeting you want to talk about HERT and their program too,
Yes,
it will be a long meeting.
that's okay. It
Okay.
won't be.
We gotta time, we gotta give them a time.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have to set a-
Tell them hit the high note, like.
They get 10
The
minutes.
main
after
ones.
the-
Okay. So I'll send them email and I'll let them know that you also want to have a discussion on their HERT. I don't know what they called. It's HERT, but I don't know if it's a
Or-
program or what it is.
Hey, Sonia, can you tell us what part means again?
Honestly, I can't remember, but I think it's something about equality and racial something. Sorry.
Somewhere in our notes. Okay.
I had the paper somewhere.
All right, so from the employment challenge meeting, I'm on page 4 now. We had a really good discussion with Mr. Gray, Ms. Schroeder, and Ms. on that committee. There was, at the end of that meeting, we did have some actions that we were looking at wanting to do. Feasibility study came out of that discussion, but that is after the big discussion is completed.
There it is. Hubbard against racism team. That's the
Against what?
racism team. That's the
Team.
yeah. That's the name of the part.
Yeah, all right, me too.
Can you say it one more time?
Hubbard against racism team.
Thank you.
I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to read over the link. You know, how they- Concerts, I'm down in the amenity section. Out of that, we were gonna develop an entertainment list to present. I don't know who you were gonna present that to.
That
So-
actually came up with the community team.
Go ahead.
What was that?
Did we talk about that on the community team Monday?
A little bit. Yes, we did.
A little bit.
And Patrick has some updates on that a little bit too.
Yeah, so it was timely that our recreation director reached out to me because we were supposed to have the fourth time that GOBA, Great Ohio
Bicycle Adventure.
Adventure, and it's like a whole week of cycling that they do around certain sections of the state. And they always love to come to Troy. They were actually going to spend an extra day in Troy, which they've never done at any of the stops. We always entertain the heck out of them. I think this year we were going to have 3 concerts. One for every night that they were here to keep them occupied, one of which was downtown, but one was going to be at Treasure Island as part of our concert series out there. So Ken reached out to me and said, hey, we got to book this band if we're going to keep this band. And it reminded me that we really ought to be starting to think about bands that we want to bring to Treasure Island. And Sonia, as you and I had talked once before about, if I think the most effective thing that the HRC can do as far as marketing, education, outreach, inclusivity, and being that example is, bring or suggest a band that we can book that can do that. I think the mayor has seen a group, I think it's called Touch, you know what she said? that what it is? The group is Touch. It's an older, well, I guess not really older, but they play. They're out of Dayton. Apparently, they're fairly popular. They played the Phrase before, so I don't know how much they cost us.
Ocean.
What's the name of that again?
Touch.
Are they the ones that played downtown that were actually on TV on that
They might have
one
been.
show?
They might have been.
They're old. Well, they're not old. Well, yeah, they're
The
old.
Sounds of
They're they're older men.
Sounds of touch.
They play a little
Sounds
bit
of
of.
Touch. They
every
play
kind of music.
Motown.
Yeah, I think it's the same
say
group.
Motown sound. I mean, they've opened for Eddie Money and the Temptations before. Lou Graham, Spinners.
They're good.
Uh,
If it's them, they were real good. Matter of fact, when they were downtown Troy, the whole place was filled. It was hard to find a place to
Were
sit.
they here?
I think they were here already,
I had not heard that.
probably
Long time ago.
4 or 5 years ago, when they first started doing the program there.
I'll double check that. I don't know. We may be
Yeah.
talking about two different
I'll
bands,
have
but
to look them
you
up.
know, if
and-
you can look that.
See, I'll
up.
look at
If
their
it is a
Facebook,
different
I'll
band,
know.
if that's an
Huh?
option too.
Is it for men?
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's
that's-
also-
Are they in like red tuxedos? Yeah.
They're called the Motown sound.
Motown sounds of touch.
And that's just a suggestion. That's
I
not,
think that
you know,
sounds,
if you
well,
have some other
you're talking
ones
about
now.
me, I'm older, so.
Yeah,
I'm not
I was
really-
gonna say, or is there a younger crowd? The problem is,
You're gonna get
in
younger
our
crowd.
price range and in our audience capacity, anywhere really, including the arena, we're not going to be able to attract as many options for the younger crowd because we do well with cover bands. And then the younger crowd has the newer music, which hasn't gotten to the cover band status yet. And I'm not paying for Justin Bieber and some of these other ones to come in because we kind of have a budget issue overall, and I don't think I could justify blowing it on entertainment. So that's what we run into, but certainly something that is outside what we've typically done. You know, we've done Eagles cover bands, we've done Jimmy Buffett before, Chicago. We had a run on Chicago last year. Wasn't it last year, Tom?
yeah,
Three different
Two or three
covers,
times,
Chicago.
yeah.
Which, you know, was great, but
Yeah,
it's a lot of Chicago.
Get really good Christian bands here too. We
Yeah,
get
that's true. That's true. There is Painter had an African group that performed. They sang, they danced. The drums and all the instruments were wonderful. And they had it at the Hano Culture Center inside upstairs.
So I wonder if that's their niche.
Uh-huh.
So when they'll bring them, and then they'll bring small like trios, and,
Mhm.
and so they do them inside typically, or maybe
Yeah.
they do it in the courtyard as well. What I'm thinking is something that might have a broader appeal, but kind of a bridge to a different group, because we typically have a demographic, and I'm not saying a racial demographic, it's probably more an age demographic
Mhm.
that likes to go to Treasure Island. The cover band stuff, you know, it's typically 80s music that's not getting covered, 70s, 80s music. And so we've been looking for options to do something different. And if we can kind of grow that demographic and reach out to more and get everybody in there, and then at the same time, maybe pass out some literature or the marketing brochure, you'll hear about some stuff when Lauren comes next week. You know, and make it kind of a subtly educational thing, like here's who we are, here's what we do, here's us as a resource, and you know, it's all about inclusivity, and this is the band that we brought, and then you guys, I guess, promote it or sponsor it, and put it like that.
Cool.
Hey,
But it's
Patrick.
part of our concert series, so we've got it in the budget.
Mhm.
Has anybody thought about doing comedians?
I was
Like
just
we
gonna
have Dave Chappelle is in spring.
Now, we gotta be careful with that
Not
one,
in this
because
day and
we
age.
have one across the table that thinks he's a comedian. And, I know the arena, has done comedians, and sometimes they do well, and sometimes
Will you let me,
Committee's a little
will you let
long.
me lead off? Do I get the opening act?
not with a
As long
hot
as you
mic.
can make feel bad too.
But I mean, when we think about amenities, when you think about like, what do you do? Nightlife, not everybody, necessarily goes to a bar or drink, but comedy, going out on the town and having a night of comedy. I just think that's a good amenity to have instead of driving to the green to do it. The green is constantly packed with their shows. And they're not always famous comedians.
I think that's something we could look at. And we took in our meeting earlier, we talked about doing that Lois Davies, Lucille Wheat play, talking
Yeah.
to their theater to see if they would be willing to put on the play that they produced for Off Broadway. So I think to sort of envelop all of that, what we should give to the mayor is that we should, through different cultural changes, look for diversity so that we have that as an amenity to attract people of all races, colors, and genders to Troy. Something like that would be our holistic issue.
But again, I go back to, that's the initiative. Really what
What
we
are the
haven't done
actions?
here is what's the action item? And so, as I'm talking about the Treasure Island and coming up with a suggestion for an act out there that can be promoted, sponsored, supported by HRC. We also have a concert series, assuming that we're able to do it next year, which we are, between Hayner, the Troy Foundation, who's kind of the money people, but the Hayner, Troy Main Street, and the city. We've got 10 to 15 concerts that we do, and they're always looking for diversity of acts.
Do we have a calendar or schedule for the?
They're
First Friday,
probably not quite there yet with the schedule, which is great if an action item coming out of this initiative is to give them some suggested names so that they can do some research and see who they are, what they are, look at their product, and then they work out the schedule from there.
So who would be the PLC, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
who would be the PLC on that committee that is organizing the conference?
Throwing another acronym, PLC, is that what you said?
Oh, I'm sorry, point of contact.
Oh,
Oh, I
POC,
thought
okay.
PLC.
Got it.
I'm sorry, that's.
That could be through us because Sue in our office supports that, as well as Andrea, John's daughter, Andrea Keller, head of Troy Main Street. So, we've got a committee that we do the
Is that the
scheduling.
first Friday too? Do they do bands? first
Sometimes
Friday?
they're on first Friday, sometimes, they try to coordinate those with, we'll have Thursday concerts, Saturday concerts, it just depends. And it
Do
can
any-
be flexible because of the availability of the band too.
Yeah, do any of you know Finnegan? Was before you guys' time probably. But anyway, he did a little bit of rock and then a little bit of,
Oh, Mike Kernaghan?
yeah.
Yeah.
Does he still have his band? They're still good. The last time I heard him was about 2 years ago.
I have no idea.
Is he the
I mean, he's local.
professional?
Yeah,
he
he's a
played with
professional.
Crosby, Stills, Nash
Yeah.
Young, Cher.
Is he back here though?
Yeah, well, he was 2 years ago. I don't know if
I
he's,
don't-
I
I
can
don't
check,
know.
I can find out for you. You check and find out for you.
But
But it would be nice, local boy.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's like Finnegan's Rainbow or something.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
yeah, had a really, was very,
he performed anymore.
very good.
Is he, we're trying, we always try to look for diverse acts, different genres of music.
And
Because we
there's
don't want to get.
I knew it had a black
pigeonholed
claw.
in type,
Yeah.
80s cover, 80s hair bands or,
And there's
rock
a-
bands. Hard
There's
rock
an
bands.
agent in Troy who worked out of Columbus who I know the city's worked with and Rotary's worked with, and she's really good. So I think she could give
Yeah,
us
she could help.
the
The
names of
names.
people really quickly. She was on Troy. So, but I do think, and I'll do respect to Patrick, and I agree we got to get both. So let's say we need to do so we're going to look at some cultural events, and they would include potentially a diversity play, concert, at the
Todd,
meeting.
is that the community team though? Because we had that discussion on the community team already. That
I,
should.
I, I think they're all the same. I think
Yeah,
it's,
they're all
it's an
the same.
amenity, community
Mhm.
event. It's all sort of the same issue. But I also think we need to touch on the one that Sheree brought up, which is the trust. I think we need to say that one of the things, one of our initiatives is to work on building, how did Melissa say it? Because I thought you wrote it in the notes really well. Um, assistance in identifying minority groups to build dialogue and trust.
Mhm.
And I think we need to work, I think that needs to be part of what we need to look at.
But I think Marvin's idea about getting the churches together is
Mhm.
a conduit for that.
Because everything used to run through the
You
churches.
really gotta understand, okay, how do we do that? And I think the churches are good.
Mhm.
Right,
good
and
resource.
again, it's sort of like the schools, we can't control the chamber, but they've been sort of side numbers. Kathy's been to a number of these meetings and so is Jigger. I think we need to look at diversity and team leadership Troy and leadership Troy. I
Yes.
thought that was one of those, when you stand back and you look and you're like, oh yeah, I never really, I mean, for me personally, that was one of those, oh yeah, I never really thought about that. It's, I'm always a mentor for the Troy, because there's always somebody who wants
Yeah,
to be a
but
lawyer.
I think it was the light bulb went on, Kane, maybe you brought it up. When somebody mentioned that, I don't think it was Culture Club, because that was a group in the eighties.
Yeah.
There is a club at the school that has 200 members, and nobody had.
Oh yeah, the culture club.
It is the Culture Club. Right?
Mhm.
Boy George.
Mhm. Yeah. Wrong club.
Maybe I could be his visionary.
Happy.
They hadn't been reaching out to, and may not even have known it existed, but they weren't going to that club to recruit for
Leadership Troy.
for team leadership Troy.
So I think that's something that we should put in our, as we narrow parse this down, I think that's something that we need to say as part of the economic. And then I think we really got to kind of wait to hear from the corporate people to see how we can implement ideas there, because I mean, we can have altruistic, purposes, and we can all stand here and say, but as I said probably a couple weeks ago, the most amazing thing about this is you don't know what you don't know, and as we keep finding out more stuff, it's amazing to me that, oh yeah, we're already have a ride to work program that gave 9,000 rides last year. I mean, it's easy to say, oh yeah, nobody can get to work. Well, 9,000 people did last year, and they could probably do 9,000 more if they had the money and resources. So
Yep.
That's the coolest part in my 6 months or whatever it's been doing and everything.
I'm gonna ask one question. I think at the last meeting, you talked about the Japanese school, and you said you're wanting, or needing, we are needing HRC, city, TDC to find a location for the Japanese school. Is it for the school, or can you help me out with that one?
So ultimately, they're facing the same kind of building infrastructure issues that the schools are, except they're dealing with one smaller building and the schools are dealing with 10. And it is an aging building, so they are looking to move. We would like them to move into town because it can be difficult for them to find where they're located. There's a children's, no,
They're at the stock school, I think.
it's Miami's high school on the hill.
I thought they were at the Staunton Elementary.
Yeah. The Japanese school is over by 5 Points as you go north of town.
Yeah, that's Staunton Elementary.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how many students do we have on this Saturday?
They can have anywhere from, I'm giving a ballpark because I don't know the exact number. The number that sticks in my head is 150,
Oh,
but it's in the 100 to 200 range because, you're bringing the nationals from the corporate, the upper corporate levels of Honda, F&P, not only in Troy, also and not even in just our region, also Marysville. They come, I believe that they closed the Japanese school in Toledo area, so now you're getting a lot more pouring in from the north. And there are some that come across the border from Indiana every weekend to go to that school. So I mean, we've had conversations with Shane about using on Saturdays the educational wing, the classroom wing, but frankly, it may not be big enough to accommodate. We've talked about it as part of a conversion program whenever the schools get their building project underway, that maybe we can repurpose one of their older buildings. Won't have air conditioning in it, but they may be able to modify some things to get that to work. So, does that help?
Yeah, I was just
You want to
150
make
to
that,
200
what do you call it, an action point on one of these?
initiatives.
And then should we make that an initiative for us to look for?
That's probably a longer term.
Yeah, I was
I'm
gonna
thinking
say, I don't
action
know if
plans.
it's
I'm
already-
thinking like, what can you really accomplish in the next 12 months?
Yeah.
So that in 2022, first quarter of your report, you're saying, okay, we told you we had 6 action plans based on those initiatives in 2021, and we were 6 for 6, and then some.
Which is what, did you talk at all about what we talked about? When do we, I guess at the HRC is when you'll tell them what we came up with from Tuesday or
Yes.
from Monday? Okay. So we came up with like 6 out of the meeting, 5. So I think if we can come up with 5 or 6 out of here, that goes to your deal, pare that down to 8 to 10. Get it to the mayor. Like I said, it was announced by council that hopefully we'll have something by the end of the year to them.
So I'd say the Japanese school, that would be a long term, but that would be a 6th one that's coming out of the meeting today.
Okay.
So do they only need a school for Saturday?
That's typically how they schedule it, yes.
Okay.
Because, the other component of this is, besides the Japanese school that wasn't talked about last week, is the ESL program. I mean, Troy's got the county's English as a second language program, and it's extremely successful. It's very popular. And that's something that is probably not well publicized.
And they have a classroom now.
It's a great, it's a great,
They're not
They
next closet
do?
anymore?
They do.
yeah, right, they
They-
do.
They took it
It's
out the
more
closet?
space.
Yep.
Okay.
But they've got, I mean,
You
there's
can clean it.
outreach.
I will.
Is that I definitely will.
There's that, they serve a couple of populations we really didn't even know were here. The schools know very well that they're there, but that's just part of their business, daily business. And
Who manages
again, it's
that
the only
program?
one in the county. It's Troy City Schools
Oh, okay.
with the Miami County Educational ESC, I guess.
Well, it sounds like we've got a win with the pain. They're out of the closet, so.
Yay.
They got their own space.
The Hispanic lady, did we ever decide on anything about her?
On Ruby,
Yeah.
I mean, she's still interested in being a part of the
Did we ever give her
commission.
name to?
And did you give her name to Mayor Hoda?
Do I need to do that?
Or you could email me, I can give it to her.
Okay. Yeah,
That's a
As a-
suggestion.
yeah. I'm gonna brought to the city council.
I thought we voted on that. And
Yeah,
Yeah, we did.
Yes, we can.
I wondered.
So I can send, would you like email, contact information, and then
I'll pass it along and we can try and engage.
maybe like some kind of a background, a resume of some sort. from her.
I think I'm good as far as, I've gone through all of the notes here in the meeting minutes. Unless you guys see something else that we could add. But we're at 6.
I just want to just to throw this in there. There is a lot of research studies that show that low-income kids over the summer months lose a lot of that educational time, and they actually have the highest increase of what they absorb in during the school year because they have that entire period where they're not learning anything, and that's due to a lot of access. So how can we, as the HRC, highlight some of those after-school programs and summer programs, those amenities that they would have access to, and help those kids and those families get into these programs.
I think that would probably come part of when Lauren comes next meeting, as far as like in a brochure or whatever we put together. Today, gonna get that information out.
As long as we're careful that we're not reinventing the wheel. Again.
Right.
Because, there are those programs out there.
Well, I wasn't
And-
asking for new programs.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
And so if it's about trying to, you wanted a book of all the social services agencies, and I said, well, we've got it.
Yeah.
So we now need to make it accessible, which I think we've done.
Uh-huh.
So, as long as we're looking at those kind of things, because there are programs that can be better marketed, maybe. And there's some of them are still kind of in the infancy. And so it's all about leverage and this group being able to really push the message out.
You're looking academic or recreation?
Sounds academic. It's
Yeah,
academic.
more
After
academic,
school.
but after school and also summer
Or
programs.
summer? Because I know there's lots of stuff the city does that gets, like, there's a play thing the Troy Civic Theater does during the summer. There's, I think the Golf Pro does, like, you can come for basically free if you're a kid for a lesson.
Basically free.
I think it's really cheap, isn't it? There's
Well,
program that
some
is-
of
What are
them,
you thinking?
even if it's cheap,
Well, I
Yeah.
get
Some
it.
of them
And-
can't.
But it's my point, yeah, I agree. So maybe that's something that we could do is
Yeah.
say, hey, look,
sponsors.
let's make sure that that this is something that's open to everybody. If they're, I don't know, he came and talked to Council about it one time. Who's the new golf pro? Well, he's not that
Oh,
new
yeah,
anymore.
Tyler.
What is it?
Tyler.
Yeah, and I think he was trying to do some reach out programs.
He's done
for
some reach out programs, but you got other programs out there that are simple ones just to promote without making costly programs like, what is?
Playground.
Well, I'm thinking
The
like
reading,
Leave, just
the
he's promoting,
education.
doing things like the closed captioning.
Right.
Kids lose a lot of their knowledge over the summer because they don't read anymore. They don't go outside, they don't read, they do videos, or they're watching so much TV. Simple thing is
Reading better.
promote putting your closed captioning on there, so if they're watching TV, they're reading while they're watching TV.
Also-
Studies have shown that works.
That word.
That's a great idea.
Also, even encouraging our police department to get more involved with lunch buddies. I think that's really great. Jewel was my lunch buddy after Mayor Beamish, and I enjoyed that. We went all the way to junior high.
Who was it?
Jewel.
Jules Connor?
Yeah.
Cool. That's interesting. So he actually came in and watched with you?
Yeah, we
Every
had
so
lunch.
often.
What the lunch buddy program is they'll come in and they'll read with you. They'll bring in like lunch from McDonald's or wherever, and you get to go separately with them and hang out with the
Will the
kids.
future begin today on that?
So yeah, so that's under the umbrella of Future Begins Today.
Kind of thing.
What was that?
That it's under the umbrella of Future Begins Today, which really is, in my opinion, an under-resourced agency that's actually addressing a lot of the problems we're talking about. So they do the homework helper, the lunch buddies, and then they'll do an activity. I think
I was just gonna say, she would be
you know.
I'm sorry, Tanya. She would be a great person to come.
Yeah, that's Natalie Roll.
Scholarships.
Got it right here.
Oh,
Yeah,
You know,
he does the
yeah.
direct scholarships for, you know, a lot of our kids that are getting degrees from under-resourced areas and minorities. It's because Future Begins funds from freshman year to graduation.
Exactly. And they have summer programs.
Yeah, and they're
Kentucky
so
and-
unique. They do what is it, Kane? You guys got to do so many community service hours.
Yep.
Oh Lord, the Future Begins.
We should reach out to her solemnly, even if it's just in this committee. She would be dynamite.
I
It's a
also,
good program.
I think
Yeah.
also like as an HRC, we should encourage these things. So even just writing a thank you letter, a congratulatory letter, and sending it to programs like Future Begins today to say that, you know,
Could we
support-
fund a scholarship
We don't have
for
money.
Future Begins?
We can't.
can we do fundraisers to
Do
raise money? Fundraisers.
Yeah, sure.
for
Because it's
scholarships.
such a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly appropriate, and there, you know, a lot of organizations, not a lot, but there are organizations that do that, and then they will funnel that to the, Future Begins Today or other organizations. The Troy Foundation has many scholarships. Their frustration is that many years, they've got too many scholarships available and not enough kids to take the time to.
Mhm.
Yeah, so, you know, the HRC encouraging and identifying those and encouraging applications, maybe even helping with the application process, because, you know, these are kids, they get scared.
Yeah.
So as y'all were talking, this is what went through my mind, because we're talking about these different or nonprofit organizations, right? Especially like for the kids with Future Begins now. And Lauren is coming in at our next meeting, but I'll kind of go back to what I was thinking a while back ago about as far as HRC advertising or putting something on the website or even if it's just like once a month saying, hey, did you know, like a did you know section, that Future Begins now is accepting scholarships at this time or whatever is going on, kind of like a did you know section on our website.
Yeah.
But even, yeah, and that's a great idea. That's a conventional idea. So what you'll hear is from Warren, maybe some unconventional ways to get that same message out. You know, if we've got room on our utility bill,
Yeah.
you know, just a one-liner, did you know?
Mhm.
When we do press releases now, we do Facebook, Twitter, and, you know, all the social media platforms at the same time. It's just, that's the process. you
That's
know.
what they are. That's where they go
And
to.
so, you know, there are other ways that we can promote those as one hitters.
Yeah, just one hitter say, did you know, blah, 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 or whatever.
So you're gonna ride a skateboard, get and drink ocean spray?
Skateboard, is that what you're saying?
I wanna see you singing Fleetwood Mac riding the skateboard.
Yeah. That would be ugly. That might be cool to see.
That's a good one, right?
Yeah.
So I think we've got this all. Can you think of anything else? I'm gonna call it in 3 minutes, but,
Yes, boss lady.
anything more than that.
I think this is a great list of initiatives
Yeah.
to present and also to start really digging into. I don't think we should overwhelm ourselves because we at least have 4 years on the table.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think when you hear what the other group came up with and coupled with what this group came up with, I mean, it really has synthesized from where we, not.
25 initiatives.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so, and I think, and like I said, you don't know what you don't know, and I think it's been very informative. I hope people are watching on Facebook and learning about this stuff, because there's needs to happen.
Mhm.
Oh, one thing, we'll go back, the survey.
You didn't adjourn yet.
No, I didn't.
You
You got 2 minutes, you got 2
minutes.
minutes.
I can tell jokes.
No,
I want to hear something.
no.
Right.
no,
While you
no.
were out, we talked about social service survey. I don't know if you recall that. But one of the things out of a social service survey that we were going to want to look at maybe a company that would help us to build a social service survey targeting parents and students. That's going to require funding.
Well, it's gonna require not only funding, but also partnerships.
Correct.
Because if you're talking about students, you're talking about voluntary compliance.
Mhm.
If you're talking about social services, you're talking about another and pretty much entirely separate group from the city. What I would suggest would be a follow-up conversation with Melissa Kleps, because they've been looking into those kind of things. So again, it's, you don't know what you don't know. They may be a lot farther along than everybody realizes. And, if there's some suggestions to make that process better, that's a lot better way of using resources than reinventing the wheel.
Well, I just want to put that out there. We may need some money, but we will.
Yeah, you broke it up, but this is not my good ear, but.
How much time we got left?
None.
None?
All right, it's 7:30.
Don't tell the same guy, please.
You've heard it,
You've heard 3 times.
Meeting adjourned.
Did you hear about the cannibalistic lion?
No.
He swallowed his pride.
Oh, my God.
That's the quality of-
I said, don't tell a joke. Didn't I say don't tell a joke? Shame on him.
Oh, I think
That's
Bye.
horrible. I can't encourage him.
we did set a time. Okay.